What are some less known, darker facts about beloved countries?
New Zealand has one of the highest youth suicide rates in the OECD.
The Dutch once ate their prime minister.
Canada had a cult leader named Rock Terror of Ant Hill Gang who did some very disturbing things to his followers and the children. https://en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/rock_th%c3%a9 Realt. Also, the podcast Cults had an episode on him, but they even left out the worst things they did. Edit, Rich to Rock. I'm told, last podcast on the left, did a 3-part series on him as well.
On Toronto's beaches up to the mid-1950s, it was common to see signs that read, "No dogs or Jews allowed." Edit. Not so much of a spoiler alert, blacks were also in that group.
France had concentration camps, in 1936 for Spanish immigrants who fled the Civil War.
If you've ever looked at a country like Liechtenstein on a map and wondered how a country that small can maintain a flourishing economy, the answer is that they're one of the largest offshore banking sites in the world. Most people only think of the Cayman Islands when it comes to offshore banking, but the Cayman Islands aren't even close to being the only place where rich people stash their money to avoid paying taxes on it. Most of the places that do it are territories and not countries. The Cook Islands, Anguilla, Jersey and Guernsey are a few other big offshore banking sites, but Liechtenstein has made it the core of their economy.
Spain created over 50 new torture methods in the past 300 years.
During WW2, Japan used living POWs for bayonet practice.
Bhutan forcibly expelled Hindus in order to create its happy paradise.
Canada is the biggest producer of asbestos in the world, although using the product is banned in the country.
Here in Colombia we have enough material to have a dedicated post, but for mentioning one. In 1928, a banana company workers ceased their production and got in protests. They wanted better work conditions because they worked a lot for the crap of payment they got. The government's response was send the National Army to shoot a place where between 2,000 and 4,000 people were sleeping or relaxing. Officially 13 people died, but the people there told that number was faked and the death counter was a lot higher.
Sarawak ignores the natives called the Penan. They still lives in the jungle and are basically a jungle nomad, but due to the timber industry making big bucks, the government and logging companies ignore them and destroyed close to or more than 50% of the rainforest. If you find information from the government they will say is not true and whatnot. Bruno Mansa was an activist who fought for their rights and the perseverance of the rainforest, but he mysteriously disappeared. I think it was in the 90s, can't remember. Until today no one knows what happened to him. Conspiracy theories range from him hiding or lost in the jungle to the government assassinated him.
During World War II, the Swiss National Bank accepted large quantities of gold from the German Reichsbank as payment for Swiss export shipments, weapons, ammunition. A large part of this Reichsbank gold had either been looted by the German occupying forces from the stocks of the occupied countries, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Poland, Czechoslovakia, etc., or it came from the victims of the Nazi persecution of the Jews' Holocaust.
Norway used to suppress the natives from up north, by separating them from their parents and forcing Norwegian culture upon them. Learning Norwegian and how to live like a Norwegian.
New Zealand, high rates of child abuse, hidden poverty and a housing crisis on the brink. Not enough housing, and what there is extremely expensive to both rent and buy and rapidly rising at a ridiculous rate. It's also not particularly high quality.
Scrolling through these comments feels like when your family thinks you're old enough they start letting you in on the dark family secrets.
From the 1700s up to 1996, Ireland was home to Magdalen laundries. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/magdalen_laundries_in_Ireland . Basically labor camps run by the Catholic Church for fallen women who had sex outside of marriage. A lot of time the women were SA survivors who'd been molested, impregnated by priests or male relatives, chronicled in the incredible film The Magdalene Sisters, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_Magdalene_sisters and this song by Joni Mitchell, https://www.youtube.com/watchv=yejbvzkw.
Netherlands slaved the shit out of Africans. And the Belgium did some shit in Africa that would make Joseph Mengele go, whoa, calm down buddy.
In around 1910, the Australian government decided it was a good idea to steal Indigenous children from their mothers and send them to schools to be taught. Some of them never even saw their parents again. They were called the Stolen Generation.
Evidently everyone was a dick to their natives.
Canada has an incredible racist history involving taking Aboriginal children from their homes and bringing them to residential schools where they were beaten, underfed, and forced never to speak their language. Many of them died.
Spain expelled the Jews in the 1490s. No Jewish children were born in Spain again until the 1960s.
In Canada, the police would frequently take native men for midnight tours, or starlight drives, where they would drive them miles out of town and kick them out of the car. This happened in the middle of winter and they would take their coats and oftentimes boots as well before they kicked them out.
In Argentina, the right-wing government took the babies of pregnant left-wing prisoners and adopted them into military families during the Dirty War.
New Zealand has crippling mental health, poverty and housing issues which many gloss over because Jacinda Ardern exists.
Sweden and the Viphomes experiments, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Viphome_experiments. The Viphome experiments were a series of human experiments where patients of Viphome Hospital for the Intellectually Disabled in Lund, Sweden, were fed large amounts of sweets to provoke dental caries, 1945 to 1955. The experiments were sponsored both by the sugar industry and the dentist community, in an effort to determine whether carbohydrates affected the formation of cavities. They had people with mental disabilities eat very sugary candy to see its effects on their dental health. They got like very sticky toffee. Encouraged them to really get it all around their teeth and they for sure weren't allowed to brush their teeth. Just horrible.
South Korea has some fun stuff going around. Spycam, hidden camera epidemic. Government encourages women to marry and give birth but won't do anything to change harsh working hours, conditions and requirements, plus little benefit to actually raise families. Pregnancy out of wedlock is considered shameful. Celebrities can be shut down if they speak out to extremities or get on someone's bad side. Eiley comes to mind here. Netizens are oft harsh in judgment of others, especially celebrities and politicians. Tableau of epic high comes to mind. The Korean War and its consequences are darker than what your average history books will tell you. Even the nicer South Koreans have a darker side regarding destroying of villages suspected of being northern spies or activists, and the like. Presidents in Korea hardly ever go scandal-free. It's still quite patriarchal here. Natives still want sons, military service is of great honor despite being enforced by law, lots of overall power trips, suicide rates skyrocket, mental illness being treated as taboo, although it's getting addressed a little more nowadays. Authorities, particularly the police, can't handle a domestic violence dispute. A drunk man with an episode is judged as being under the influence, and gets a slap on the wrist. A domestic case can be dismissed if one side, either the aggressor or the intimidated victim, tells authorities that it's not a big deal. In fact, laws and judgment in general are weak here.
Not sure if beloved, as much as pitied, but I'll chime in about Haiti. They won their independence from French colonists in 1804, which was incredible and proud. But after the war, Dessalines committed a genocide against white residents. Upon his death, there were tensions between the blacks and the mulatto class, and the country was divided between Henry Christophe in the north with the support of most blacks, and Alexandre Pétion in the south with the mulats and gens de couleur, men of color equals people who were freedmen pre-revolution. Christophe established an autocratic kingdom and an unpaid feudal plantation system, near to slavery albeit with less cruelty, to try and export sugar for profit, while Pétion went from democratic rule to eventually abolishing the legislature. The country would be reunited in 1820 by Boyer. only for him to conquer the future Dominican Republic, which Haiti would hold until 1844. Fun facts to balance that out. Haiti was the first country to recognize Greek independence against the Ottomans. Haiti gave Simon Bolivar sanctuary, after which he was able to rebel against Spain to create Gran Colombia.
Mosquitoes in Brazil can literally kill you from 1 out of 5 illness.
In parts of Colombia, it's tradition to have sexual relations with female donkeys as a way of practicing safe sex before marriage.
Don't ask Germany how it got those borders.
During WW1, Poles were drafted by both sides with the promise that upon victory their nation would be restored from the partition that had destroyed it decades earlier. Hundreds of thousands of Poles killed each other trying to free their homeland.
Ireland has to this day still not recovered population-wise from the British-imposed famine of the mid-19th century.
The Holocaust wasn't Germany's only genocide of the 20th century. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/hero_and_Namaqua_genocide.
Sweden used to sterilize its minorities, the mentally ill and LGBT people, the latter until 2013. Edit. Since so many thinks it's false. Romanies being sterilized. http://www.erc.org/roma-rights-journal/report-reveals-that-will-in-Sweden. http://www.erc.org/roma-rights-journal/report-reveals-that-will-in-Sweden. Greater than. According to various press reports in late August, authorities in Sweden carried out forced sterilizations on 60,000 Romani women, in order to cleanse society of what they regarded as inferior racial types. Samis. https://www.politico.eu/article/sami-reconciliation-process-sweden-minority-multiculturalism-human-rights-discrimination. https://www.politico.eu/article/sami-reconciliation-process-sweden-minority-multiculturalism-human-rights-discrimination. Greater than. Representatives of the indigenous group point to forced sterilization preservation of Sami human remains at government research facilities and the so-called cultural genocide that all but eliminated them from the official history of their country. The mentally ill and others. https://www.thelocal.se/20051221/2727-2/closing square bracket opening https://www.thelocal.shay/20051221/2727-2/closing parenthesis. Greater than. The Scandinavian country, which remained officially neutral throughout World War II, forced mentally disabled people, epileptics and people with alleged social problems to undergo sterilization against their will, or pressured them to agree to the operation in order to be allowed to marry or be released from mental institutions. https://www.reuters.com/article/us-sweden-transgender-sterilization-idusbn 16y1 ZAR. Greater than. Swedes had to be sterilized before they could legally change their gender until 2013. The government's bill would allow an estimated 800 people to claim 225,000 crowns, $26,000, each in compensation from the state.
During WW2, Canada turned away fleeing Jewry, Romanians, and Gypsies seeking asylum from the horrors of the Nazi Party. They didn't believe their claims of what was happening until near the end of the war when the camps were discovered.
Belgium is a pretty chill place. Post Leopold II.
Japanese army raped women from South Korea and China. I recommend you to see the documentary. Anyway, they raped the women at a ratio of 70 men to single women. If women get pregnant, they either kill the baby because if babies might rebel against Japanese army.
In some states in the US, child brides are legal. There's over 200,000 child brides, some of them being like 13 years old.
In Canada, There's a guy called Scott. He's a dick.
A whole lot of rape, murder and deception. That's every country though.
For all the weeaboos out there, look up Unit 731.
Scrolled for a bit. Haven't seen South Korea mentioned. This country was a US-sanctioned military dictatorship until relatively recently. Government corruption is still a huge problem, to the point that several presidents have been thrown in jail, most recently in 2017. Their current prosperous but stagnating economy was built on decades of worker suppression and anti-union political and cultural attitudes that allowed large corporations like Samsung and Hyundai to exploit people and throw them to the wayside. The majority of people living beneath the poverty line are elderly. Most have no pension from their job and barely get a pittance from the government. Attitudes about work in the culture here lead people to suffer from severe stress, which they typically cope with by becoming alcoholics. The leading cause of death among children is suicide, as many are expected to work well over 10 hours a day at extracurricular academies and cram schools and do not have any free time. K-pop idols are recruited from about 13 years old to basically go to singer boot camp and receive no other education. Their production companies strictly control their lives, all the way down to their diet, and most have no career options when they're no longer young and attractive enough to draw people's attention. Some of these companies also withhold large portions of performers' earnings and do not hand them over once the contracts are completed. Aside from that, it's a great country that everybody should visit.